All right. All right. So this is the new Stormgate race. This is the Celestials. They're kind of like technology plus angels is what they kind of look like, the kind of flavor that they bring. If you're looking to compare them to anything within StarCraft, they come closest to Protoss. But really, they're very, very, very different as well. There's definitely some overlapping ideas from, like, for instance, StarCraft 2 Protoss, and we'll get into those in a moment. But just generally speaking, this is a very original race. So first off, this is the Arc ship. This is your main building, okay? And you can return some resources to it. And it also moves around. Watch. Okay, so you can actually land this thing as well, but you can also just fly around the map, and it can make things while it flies. Okay, for instance, the Morph Core. The Morph Core. Okay, so the Morph Core, this thing can actually attack, and this is flying too, by the way, in case that's hard for anyone to see. But yeah, this is the Morph Core, and it can either turn into the collection array, where you just land it on the minerals or the luminite, and it goes ahead and mines. Okay, or you can turn it into a fabricator, and this is going to be something that you can put near the Ethereum and go ahead and mine with that. It actually comes out, and as you'll see, it starts with a prism. Okay, so what is this? This is basically a miner, like a worker, but not exactly a worker. It's very, very different. First off, these fly. You can make them out of the Arc ship, or you can make them out of fabricators. Okay? So both can make them, and you can make them while you fly around, by the way. And these can go on to either the Therium. You have to use them for mining Therium, because this thing the fabricator will not just straight up mine the Therium alone. This is like a returning point that also builds the prisms. Now, these mine by themselves. Okay, watch. I'm going to show you some things, right? So Morph Core, we'll make one of those. And here comes this guy. So I could put him down here to mine this. And notice how this is giving plus 10. Every time you add one of these, it adds plus 3 to that. Okay, so it just kind of like makes this mine better, right? There you go. 30% more mining because you built a prism to put on it. A funny thing about these, by the way, watch this. I'm going to click it across the map. Watch. It speeds up. I find that to be a really interesting design choice. After it's moving for a while, it gets really, really, really fast. Anyways, here's a Morph Core, and these can fly around. These can attack things. They do not have a strong attack or anything like that, but really this is just an expansion. So it's kind of a funny thing where you can see the Arc ship just kind of fly through the map and pop things out the whole time, right? Like it can build this stuff. And you can just like expand. You can send these to expand. Like if there's an island or something, watch this, right? We're on Secluded Grove. You can just tell it to go over here and expand, and it will fly right over and expand for you. Okay, now here's something that's very much like Protoss. Okay, you actually have power in this. Okay, so first off, I know I mentioned that these are kind of like workers, but really these prisms are miners. They only mine. Okay, so to build things, you just have to use the command card down here, right? So like Q, and then
produce more power banks.
Yeah, produce more power banks. Well, we were just getting to that, okay? So as you can see right here, power bank. Notice this area, okay? Around these buildings, it's buildable. You don't have to build around this, but you can. That's one of the fun things about this running forward, is that it's like a mobile pylon. You don't have to stop and you don't have to land. So anyways, this is kind of like a pylon, the power bank, okay? And that's going to add more power to you. Right, and it's going to expand that area you can build in. It's kind of funny because you got to bring up something to build to see where your power is at the given moment. Okay. Also, there's this funny building, the link node, And what the link node does is it kind of like makes the power go way further out, but also this is your tower. This can turn into a tower that hits both air and ground, or a much stronger tower that just hits ground, okay? So that's what that does. Now, let's go ahead. We'll just like land that there to make that. Let's show some of the buildings off here. Okay, so first off, we'll do the Bastion. So this is going to be the Bastion. And this is kind of like a gateway. It's mostly like infantry units overall. And yeah, one thing to mention, right? So there's 3 different production structures that exist for Celestials. Okay, Bastion is going to be one of them. This is your first one. And it does have 4 different units that it can make. So I'll just show you guys what these units are, but you do have to tech up to get some of them as well. So I'll just kind of tech up slowly over time. And as you're going to be able to see more and more paths get unlocked here, right? So Bastion makes, and then you're going to be able to build more, and we're going to have to upgrade the Arc ship, that type of thing, which is pretty normal, right? So then we have Mainframe. This is another production facility, so we'll just put it there, right? And then we also have the Force Projector. This is for upgrades for more basic units. And then we got to upgrade this to tier 2 for the other couple of important buildings, right? So we'll go ahead, upgrade this to tier 2. So, yeah. Anyways, over here, we're going to start off with building an Argent. Now, the Argent costs 150 Luminite, costs 3 supply. Guys, stop spamming that stupid sound. You're so dumb. It's so stupid. Anyways, yeah, Argent, he does like 10 damage. He has 7 range. 7 range is like a pretty normal number. It sounds big. It's not really that big in Stormgate, I feel. By the way, here's the Arc Station. Oh my God, I'm going to turn that off. You guys are so annoying. I'm so sorry. Oh my God. Where is it even? There it is. Okay. We're hiding that for now. Okay. Anyways. And let's just make sure that we got plenty of power in this area. I don't want to mess with that. Okay, so here's the Argent, guys. So, it's kind of funny, right? So it looks kind of like a Zealot or something like that, but it actually has a ranged attack. Okay? And it's got this kind of interesting thing because its actual attack does 10 damage, okay? But as you can see, it has 50 mana. The 50 mana goes towards this thing called High Energy, and it's on autocast right now. You could take it off autocast and choose when to utilize it. I can imagine that happening like very, very rarely. But anyways, what it does is for 10 mana, it doubles the damage, right? So instead of doing 10 damage, it does 20, right? So see how it looks different there as well? By the way, this will restore your mana automatically. You can see that's on autocast as well. So those kind of like the power banks, the pylon-y type things refill that power. So basically that makes it a lot stronger, right? Okay, make a couple other units here. We're gonna make the scanner and the vector. By the way, we do have the Arc Station, so let's go ahead and make the rest of the buildings. So Haven is the 3rd production facility that we have for Celestials, and then the Guardian Nexus is the secondary upgrade facility, right? So Force Projector and Guardian Nexus going to be for the upgrades. All right, here's the scanner. The scanner is a really, really, really weird unit. You might look at this and be like, oh, it's kind of like an observer. Kind of, but not really. Watch this, okay? Watch this. Okay, it's super fast, but look at how little vision it has. Okay? By the way, it has no attack here. No attack. And almost no vision, but it's super, super, super fast. Now, let me show you what it actually does. So what it does is you use this little ability, and the ability is actually called Perch, and it perches it on a tree, literally on a tree. Okay, so on the tree it gains stealth, and as you can see, it sees a huge amount of area here. A huge amount of area. So it's kind of like you siege it up. Now, it can only do this one time. You can only perch it one time. Now, to be fair, it is very cheap. It's 50 Luminite, so that's like about like an imp or a bob, right? It's like very, very cheap. So for 50 Luminite, 1 supply, 15 seconds of build time, you get one of these things. So you can perch it on a tree. It's going to give you detection capabilities, see everything, and it's got stealth. Okay? Now, what you can do from there is press X, and then it comes down on the ground. And now it's a unit that can attack. Okay? It's not quite as fast. Oh, reperched. It can never fly again, though, guys. It can never fly again. So you could move it around, but now it's a little bit easier to kill. It's not as fast. Its vision is a little bit better. It attacks, but it's like a really bad attack. It's like 5 damage. As you'll see, it doesn't do anything here. Just gets completely owned. So kind of an interesting unit. Now, one thing about it, it does have an upgrade. Okay, and the upgrade is tag. And basically what that does is it's revelation. If you know the Oracle from StarCraft 2, it basically puts revelation onto an enemy unit, right? So it like tags that unit, you can see what that unit can see, etc. Okay, so like, well, we're upgrading now. I'll show you it later. Okay. By the way, about the Argent does have an upgrade here called Photo Restoration, and that is right here. And what this does is, first off, it's like Zealot legs a little bit. It gives it plus 13% movement speed, but it also allows it to refill its energy, right? So you know these attacks that it's doing that cost 10 mana each, so it can do like 5 in a row, and then it has to recharge. So 5 in a row of 20, and then it recharges. Well, if you stand still for 5 seconds, it recharges all of its mana all the way. Right? So it's mostly about standing still. You're going to see this as a recurring theme with the Celestials, that if you pull them out of battle and utilize a certain ability, they're able to fix themselves in some way. That's like a very common thing within this race. Okay, so that's the first 2 units out of the Bastion. Now we're going to look at the Vector. Okay, the Vector is 100 Luminite, 50 Therium, 2 supply, 30 seconds to build. It's quite fast. It has 6, it does 6 damage, but in a funny way. It shoots 3 shots of 6, right? So it's going to interact a little bit differently with armor, but still have reasonable damage. See, 3. So you can't even get it to not shoot the 3. Okay. So it's always going to shoot the 3, but obviously when you have 3 shots coming out, armor is going to be a little bit stronger against that. Okay, now the Vector is actually really interesting because it has this thing called Delta Jump, as you can see right here. And what it basically does is it's kind of like a blink ability where it's going to go ahead, jump forward, and when it does that, it's in something called like temporal form. Temporal form. Yeah, temporal form. Anyways, it takes 50% bonus damage, right? So it's going to take more damage, but it can recall back to its previous location. Okay? So watch. It doesn't go that far. It doesn't go quite to the end of its vision, right? So this is in temporal form right now. So I'm running around and I can attack, but it's going to take extra damage. Watch this. Ready? Oh, no. Oh, no. Bam. Teleports back. Okay, so yeah, this is it's kind of similar to like an Adept, a little bit. Not exactly though. I find this to be one of the more interesting units for the Celestials. I feel like there's some really cool ideas with this. It's taking extra damage, but like you can do this. Imagine like I'm outside my opponent's base. Okay, let's say my opponent's base is over here, right? So I'm like, okay, let's go. So I'm just like, bam, run in. Obviously, they can tell you're in temporal form, so they can jump away. You're taking extra damage, but then you're just like, all right, now everyone gets out and you run away because it's a fast unit anyways. So it feels like a very, very cool unit. Some really good ideas here, I think. And this does hit air and ground as well, by the way. I believe actually both these are just ground attacks. Oh, no, this is air ground. I'm sorry. Argent does air and ground, and then this one... I believe is only ground. Yeah. No, it's air and ground as well. Damn, man. Almost everything hits air and ground. Okay. Anyways. There is an upgrade for the Vector. It's called Scalar Recovery. And basically what that does is when it teleports back, like let's say you're doing this little harassment attack and you take some damage, and then you teleport back. Well, I don't have the energy to do it right this second. But if you have that upgrade, it will return it to the energy and health that it was at. So let's say you have 100 health, or let's say you're full 100% health. You go in and you get down to 1% health and you have that upgrade and you jump it back, suddenly it's at full health again. So, yeah, I think that's one of the more interesting units for sure. Okay. Next unit, the Saber. Now, the Saber is weird. I'm not a big fan of the Saber so far. Like, I get it. You'll see here. It's more expensive, obviously, as it's like one of the higher tier units. It's 225 Luminite. It's 125 Therium, 6 supply, 45 seconds to build. So takes a lot longer. It's got much better range than these other units. It's up at 13 range, so almost twice as much as the Argent. And it does 48 damage. So it's a heavy hitting unit for sure. Now, this unit is so slow, it reminds me of the Reaver a little bit. It's incredibly, incredibly slow, right? So see that? Very, very, very slow. Now, that being said, very long range. Okay? And lots of damage. Now, it's got 2 abilities here. It's got Mass Accelerator. Okay? I'll show you. Woo! 5-second speed boost. So a very, very large speed boost for 5 seconds. Now, that being said, it's like Giga Stim. It takes 75 of its 250 health. 75 health there. Crazy. Now, it has 2 abilities. One is called Self-Repair. The Self-Repair will repair you for 125 health over the course of 10 seconds, but you cannot move. Okay? If you try to move, it cuts it off. Right? Same thing if you're doing the speed boost and you attack or you get attacked, the speed boost cuts off. Okay, so you can choose, am I healing right now or am I boosting right now? Right? So this kind of goes back to that same thing we were talking about before, where a lot of these celestial units, like if you kind of take them out of battle, they kind of can repair themselves a bit. Okay? One thing to mention is that there is a different ability that can be upgraded, a passive called Core Ascendancy, and it will make it so that instead of running for 5 seconds, you run for 10 seconds, and instead of healing for 125, you'll heal for 250. Like you'll heal the full health of the thing. Okay, so it just kind of makes it better in those ways. But definitely a very slow unit. This is its normal speed. How crazy, right? Okay, so those are the units out of the Bastion. By the way, all 3 of these buildings, all 3 of these production buildings, the Bastion, Mainframe, and the Haven that you see here, you'll see this little thing that says B. What is that? What is that? It's designating something as a prime building, a prime Haven, a prime Mainframe, a prime Bastion. So basically, you could have one of these near your opponent, you set it as the prime, and everything that you make out of those buildings will come out of it. So it's like a warp gate. It's very similar to a warp gate. Okay, so you can get all your units to appear at that front location. Okay. Let's go ahead and go over to our next units from the Mainframe. First, we're going to get the Kree. And I'm going to start some upgrades for the Kree right now. You're going to love the rollout. Oh, okay. So, the Kree. This guy is 100 Luminite, 25 Therium, 2 supply, 26 seconds to make. He's going to remind you of the Zealot a bit. He's a melee unit. He does 24 damage. And he has actually a very interesting ability, which is Blaze of Light. It's a passive ability. Basically, when this thing takes fatal damage, it becomes invulnerable for 3 seconds, and then it explodes, dealing 4 splash damage against ground. So it dies similar to a Baneling, but you keep control of the thing. So I find that to be like, wow. I think that that's something that is very likely to probably be nerfed a bit. Now, you notice it's like okay speed, but I'm upgrading something called rollout right now. Rollout, after 3 seconds of not attacking, it's going to get a 30% speed bonus. And there you go. It basically looks like a Baneling now. Right? It gets a lot faster. Now, the funny thing about this is that when it comes out of its attack, it is going to deal AoE damage. For its, you know, it does the same amount of damage as it does in its normal attack, but it would deal AoE damage upon its enemies. I'll send that up there while we make the next unit. All right, jumping back to the mainframe, we're going to build a Scythe. Scythe going to be a flying unit. Here, I'm going to just, I want to show you how the Kree, how the Kree goes. And you can see dealt a lot of damage there. We're going to let him die. So you can see the invulnerability thing. Ah! So imagine having a bunch of those.
Enemies beware.
Oh, man. Okay, so now we have the Scythe, okay? The Scythe is 100 Luminite, 75 Therium, 3 supply, 32 seconds to build. Does 4 damage at 7 range against air and ground. Okay. So it has this pulse shield ability, and you can put it on autocast, or you can activate it yourself, right? So basically, if it's getting attacked, you can make it take no damage for 3 seconds, right? Every 8 seconds, you can make this take no damage for 3 seconds. But obviously, it's 50 energy, so that's only going to happen twice before you have to redo it. Now, the reason why that exists, you might look at that and be like, wow, that's kind of a weird ability to have. But the thing is, this actually has like a funny thing about it. The closer the Scythe gets to something, the more damage it deals to it. And I don't recall there being another RTS unit like that. There's been a lot of RTS games, so maybe there was. But it deals significantly more damage the closer it is. Like, if it is right next to you, it's going to, like, see, this is normal. It's going to deal way, way, way more damage up here. Right? So you want to get it close to your opponent, which is why it kind of has this shield, I would imagine. One thing to mention is that there is an upgrade that you can get for it down here, Retaliation Matrix. And that basically makes it so that when this is activated, if things are attacking it, it's going to up the damage by 2, which would up the close by damage by like 4, right? The melee type damage. So definitely a very different way to play, like something that you want to get on top of your opponent's units. Okay, let's jump over to the Haven. And I think that this has a couple units that I think people are going to think are the most interesting of all. The Cabal first. Just make both of them. Okay, the Cabal is a very strange looking thing. And it costs 125 Luminite, 75 Therium, 3 supply. It takes 35 seconds to build. It does very little damage, 2 damage. It has 7 range. It hits air and ground, but who cares because it does so little damage. I think the reason it does damage, it's like the High Templar in StarCraft 2 where they're like, oh, we don't want it to attack, move all the way into the enemy's lines because you're using the F2 button. I hate attacks like that personally. I hate that shit. Now, I think it actually looks much better on a better graphic than what you see here. I generally put things semi-low on graphics because all I care about is readability. I've seen pictures of this where it looks very, very, very cool. So please ignore how stupid this looks on my screen. Okay, let's talk about its abilities. It has Debilitate, which reduces damage, attack speed, movement speeds of a targeted unit for 40 seconds. And that's what's on autocast right here, right? So kind of a support spellcaster like that. Then you can get some upgrades. It has 2 levels of upgrades that you must get in order, okay? And that's going to be the Cabal Adept Training and the Cabal Master Training. Now, the first one is Gravity Flux, and it grounds air units for 4 seconds. And you can set that on autocast, okay? So grounding air units, bringing those air units down to the ground and so that like all your melee units can hit them and stuff like that. Okay, cool. And then it also has something called Mind Shackle that if you go all the way up. And this will be mind control, basically. The Cabal will target something with Mind Shackle. 3 seconds later, if it's still in range, this dies and you gain the other unit. So you would then basically just have their unit. Now, that being said, both of these say cannot target resilient units. I do not know which units will have the resilient tag. I'm assuming it's going to be some of the really high-end units, so that it's not like you're buying, like maybe the Frost Dragon has it or something. I'm honestly not sure what has the resilient tag, but thought I should mention that. Okay, up next, up last, really, we have the Animancer. Animancer is 100 Luminite, 150 Therium, 4 supply, takes 40 seconds to build, 15 damage at 8 range against air and ground. All right, its abilities, Animus Redistribution, which you can put on autocast. It drains 30 health and 30 energy per second from a target enemy unit over the course of 10 seconds. So obviously that is a lot of draining that you're doing. 300 health and 300 energy can be taken away from one of your opponent's big units. And those are added to friendly units around you, but only 25% of it. Okay? So still seems pretty powerful if you're going up against something very strong. And then similar to the Cabal, it has 2 levels of training. Animancer Adept Training and Master Training. So the Adept Training will give you Unseen Veil, which basically turns this into an Arbiter. It'll stealth your nearby units and structures for 30 seconds, and it increases movement speed by 25%. They unstealth when they're attacking or being attacked. Okay? It has like a minute-long cooldown, so not quite as good as the Arbiter, but it will cloak your army, which is pretty cool. And then the second one is Dark Prophecy. And this is a channeling spell, and you're going to understand why when I explain it to you. Channeling meaning she's going to have to stand still and make it happen, so there's going to be ways to interrupt it, right? So basically, it makes like this singularity at a target location, and it slows all the units down by 50%, dealing 20 damage per second for 2 seconds, and then 40 damage per second for 6 seconds. It doesn't work on structures, so it's like just specifically for army, so there is definitely some big counterplay to that. Okay, so those are kind of the 2 big spellcaster units. And then, of course, we have, the Kree, which are like Baneling Zealots. And then we have these, like, kind of Scourge-esque, like, close-range air fighters, right? We have, like, the ranged higher damage. This is like a cross between a Dragoon and a Zealot, I would say. This is like an Observer that can attack. Okay. I think that, the Saber and the Vector are both like really kind of original, very original-ish ideas, where it's like, okay, maybe some ideas taken, like maybe some ideas here taken from like Reaver Shuttle or something. And, maybe with the Vector ideas taken from the Adept or something like that, but it's kind of like in reverse. So definitely very interesting in that regard. Again, all these can function as like warp gates. These get upgraded into your turrets. These are your upgrade structures. And, oh yeah, the top bar I should talk about as well. Okay, so the top bar basically has, 5 abilities currently. And you can see, by the way, as you build the power banks, that's going to bring your power that you can hold up, right? So as it generates, you're going to... need to expand that a little bit. Okay, so first off, you have power redistribution. This is actually going to be a really fun one to really keep an eye on pros when they're utilizing it, because it will power on or power off buildings, right? So look, you can just turn that off. So this can't be used now. See? This just can't be used. And then we can turn it back on. So basically, if you need to suddenly redistribute your power, if your power is being sucked up and you're like, oh shit, you can turn off some buildings and then turn on other ones with this, which I think is kind of a cool idea. Okay, here, let me show you some of these higher end ones. Let me fly this slow boy over here. Oh my god, it's so slow. They have a specific ability for creeping. It's called Evolution Catalyst, right? So it's this one here. And you can do it on a creep camp, and it will take a minute, but, well, not a minute. It'll take a few seconds and just kill the creep camp for you. Now, if the creep camp is already dead and you use it on a recharging creep camp, it instantly recharges it and brings its level up. So, like, if you want to just take a creep camp, you can just do that to it to bring it back if it's not there right there. Okay? And then we have Purify, and Purify makes, like, a beam of light, which restores energy. 5 energy per second to your units, and it drains energy from your opponent's units in that same amount of time. And it will also dispel buffs. So, like, if your opponent has a bunch of buffs, you can cast that right on it. It's going to get rid of those. Then we have this one, Zenith Scan, and this is basically Comsat Scanner. See? It does a big scan and then a secondary smaller scan. Also does detection, but basically just Comsat Scanner. And then we have Sovereign's Watch, which is definitely very important. This turns... It's. Do you guys remember the Mothership Core with Pylon Overcharge? That's what it does. Okay? So, like, watch. We'll put it on this. Oh, I can't tell it to attack that. But anyways, it will attack. It will attack things. See, that becomes like basically a turret for a little bit, and you can see it just lasts a little bit. Yeah, it can't hit structures, just FYI. So there's not a rush quite like that. So like if your opponent has static D and you have this won't do anything to their static D. Their static D will wreck you, but it works against units. So definitely a very good defensive spell. Yeah, and I think that pretty much covers the basic like guide of what the Celestials are. Hope you guys learned something. Let me know if you like the design. I think it's pretty original. Obviously, it's not 100% done, but definitely a very cool start. Not exactly what I was expecting from the third race, but definitely gives a very different feel from the other two races, which I definitely appreciate.